this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the former president of the Hall of Fame, was president for a number of years, former city councilman, longtime football coach, and a great guy, who will introduce our speaker. Yeah, that's Mr. Dave Mills.
Thank you, Bob. I've been known to talk a little bit too much, so I actually wrote the introduction, and that's how long it is, so it shouldn't last too long at all. Actually, of course, if we're introducing Gary, we could spend the whole night talking about his accomplishments. But I want to make a political statement, if I could, at first, okay? And that is, tonight's a special night for the city of Bristol. Tonight we have the opportunity to celebrate by recognizing and welcoming someone that is proud to be from Bristol, and Bristol is proud of it. For the past few years, anytime our city was mentioned in the media, we constantly heard what a terrible place Bristol was. Tonight we'll hear from a person that has earned great success because he is from Bristol, and Bristol is proud to have him. He's here. I can't even read my own writing here, folks. But Gary is here tonight because his successes, and because he's from Bristol and is proud enough to write a book describing his life in our city and beyond. Bristol gave him the foundation upon which to build his Hall of Fame career. Gary's athletic career started at Green Hills School with the legendary coaches Johnny Floyd and Jim Bates. He moved on to Bristol Eastern, where he was a three-sport athlete, and then at the University of Hartford, where he became a Hall of Fame player. After graduating, Gary began his coaching career at South Catholic, then at Portland, before returning to Bristol as the coach of St. Paul's. You were well aware of his championships there. 2 state championships, and Tommy McGinney in the first row with Ray Olsen. Wouldn't let anybody in or out. They made sure that you were probably your most loyal fans. To finish up, Gary left his collegiate career at UHart. He returned to high school at East Hartford, and he ended his career with a brief stint of 31 years at Notre Dame of West Haven. You know, Gary has been a special person, and I meant what I said in the beginning is about how great we have. There's so many people that have come from Bristol, that are in Bristol, that are just terrific people. And I think Gary's a perfect example of that. Everywhere he goes throughout the country, he's so well received, so well spoken, and he's so proud to be where he is. Every time he comes back to our city, he certainly mentions everybody he sees, and to have the ability to write a book. Joe Sisiat can attest to his literary skills coming back from his sophomore year in high school. But honestly, we're very proud to have Gary Palladino here. So Gary,
I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, boy, it means a lot. What a small world it is. Nobody in here realizes that I spent 31 years at Notre Dame in that gym, and Coach Mills had a student teaching career start right in the same floor we walked.
I was there with a broken leg. I had a cast up the
Yeah. Well, so I just think as an example of, you know, what a small world we live in. And certainly, I mean, I'm so grateful, you know, just for the fact that I'm able to get through this process, and I feel very humble. I honestly, goodness, am really humble about coming back and seeing so many of my teammates and players that coach for me, and cousins, friends, English teacher. Boy, you're putting the pressure on me, Mr. Sisiat, as a sophomore English teacher at Bristol Eastern. But you know, it's hard to believe, Dave. You were there 56 years ago. You know, I was a freshman walking the hall of Bristol Eastern, and Coach Mills was a senior, and he really was. Some of my classmates are here, and Bob, I'm sure you would agree. He was one of our role models. He was definitely he was a legitimate student/athlete. All right, and he always liked to wear those sweaters, those beautiful sweaters. And he was a real sharp guy that we all admired. Captain of the first football team at Eastern '59, my brother and Tony Malusis. All right, and you set the stage for our freshman class, who finally won a game in '62, which It's all outlined in the book. So it's amazing. 56 years. What are you? Were you 4 years old as a senior in high school? Because you look tremendous. God bless you. You really do. You know, I want to thank the Historic Society, the Hall of Fame, so many people I like to single out, and we certainly don't have time, but I do want to mention Chip Melafonte from New Haven Register's here. The editor from New Haven Register made the trip from New Haven, you know, to celebrate this launch, and it means a lot to me because he's an Amity High School graduate, he's an excellent athlete, and for him to take the time tonight to be with all of Bristol friends is a tribute to the community. So, Chip, thank you so much for that gesture. And Bob, thank you for that beautiful article. And Pat Parenti for the article on the paper. It was great, and it meant a lot to me. I've been told 50 people start writing books, and Chip was one of them because he wrote a book. Out of the 50 that start writing a book, Mr. English teacher, one actually finished. 1 out of 50 actually finished. Now, I know Tommy was writing a book about Forceful. Did you finish it? No. Sorry, you're one of those 49. That's okay. But I found out the hard way. Why? Here's a key reason. It's that stinking computer that says delete. I was sharing it with Chip. I don't know how many thousands of words I lost since I started in 2003 to write that book. All right, the delete was a hate, and I gave up many weeks saying, I'm not going to finish this thing ever. Delete, 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 and then a love affair started. It was called the spell check. All right, you can relate to that. So that kind of saved me, the spell checker. And so I was very fortunate that I did get through it. But you don't do it alone. Let's face it. Chip would attest to this. Anybody that writes a memoir, you know, knows it takes a lot of people. And my wife Cheryl certainly is right in the top of the list. And certainly Mr. Sisiot, because she taught English for 35 years, didn't hurt me. Right? So she was a real pro, and she was able to help me sort out my thoughts along with our best friend, Joanne Turtle Hall from West Hartford. She's a computer expert. Joanne, I lost everything. Help! All right? And she came through in the clutch. But in the book, I've acknowledged a lot of people. There was no ghostwriter in this book, but there were a lot of people that gave me some advice. You know, and I first realized I needed some help. Early on in the chapter regarding my youth, you know, I wrote this sentence. I was a very, very, very sick little boy. And when Cheryl picked up on that, it started with a smile to her friend Joanne. Then it came to a little giggle, and then it was like a roar. And I think the best word to explain their reaction was a cackle. I was a very, very, very sick little boy. I think we could do a better job with that you know, approach to explaining my childhood. And that was a turning point. Help. What do you think? How do you feel? So one of my neighbors and a good friend, one of my former teammates in the Hartford Twilight League, a great player, great person by the name of Skip Falcone. He played with the St. Louis Cardinals for 4 years, and I'll never forget playing with him in the Hartford Orioles. Actually, Tom Pecky from Yale played first base on our team. Great player, too. And he's a prominent lawyer in West Haven and a Harvard graduate. So I had him read one of the chapters. And he made a great suggestion to me. He says, I think you better really consider, you know, your story when you were a little boy and mentioning sitting on the curb in Forceful, watching the Leatherman walking through the center of Forceful. I said, why, Skip? He said, well, he died in 1889. I said, I could have swore I saw somewhere. And he said, you did. You saw a guy coming out of maybe one of the bars, Judge Joe Epps or Johnny's Restaurant. He probably had a leather jacket on and a leather hat. You thought he was a Leatherman. I said, okay, I'll make some adjustments on that. But that was the kind of feedback I was getting. And then the classic, and the last one was kindergarten. I'll never forget this. 5 years old, we all remember those earliest memories. We had the nap. We had the nap period, 20 minutes. We lie on the floor with our little mats, all right? Remember that? Sarah Reynolds, we call it the Little Building. And when I got up from my nap, I had a little accident in my pants. So I got up, started crying, ran out to the hall, 3 steps down, Sarah Reynolds, out the door, across the street to 72 Academy Street. Mommy, I pooped my pants. All right. We didn't need to put that in there. Anyway, I went back, and the bottom line here is if we did, this story would be longer than War and Peace, believe me. I had a lot of memories like that. I went back, sat down, and Mrs. Lowry started reading this story to us about, I think it was Jack and Jill going up a hill. And anyway, we were all listening intently, and one of my best friends taps me on the shoulder, and he says, "Ha ha, look what I have." It was the little rubber Keds label on the back of my brand new sneaker. He peeled it off, Dickie Sundgren, and gave it to me, saying, "Ha ha, look what I did." Got up crying, out in the hall, down the steps, across the street. My mom said, "Don't cry, Gary, it's okay. We'll glue it back on." Back into the classroom. Didn't need that story. But that's all right. We tried to include it anyway. It was a fun time. Sarah Reynolds, the little building and the big building. So I really feel fortunate that Cheryl and Joanne certainly played a key role in helping me along the way. And I want to share now just some parts of my book that I feel that you will all be able to relate to, and they're special memories for me. I was born in Bristol, about a half a mile away. The hospital right up the street here, it was January 13th, 45. That's how I started my journey, right up the street. On the second floor of the Forceful Firehouse, Georgie Paul will remember this story. Second floor of the Forceful Firehouse, there was a backboard and a rim. I picked up a basketball and took my first shot. Right then, at the age of 8, I discovered my passion for the game of basketball that would become an integral part of my life for the next 60 years. A game that provided me with a lifetime of memories, accomplishments, and relationships, key, as well as my share of bumps and bruises. In 1946, when I was 1 year old, our family moved from 634 Stafford Avenue to 72 Academy Street. In my new neighborhood, everything was within walking distance. The school, the church, the firehouse, the Little League field, the library, the boys club. I know it was God's plan for me to grow up in Forceful and was blessed to be in, very important, I always believe this, right place, right time. Our new home was located across the street from Sarah Reynolds School and St. Matthew's Church. Raised in the Roman Catholic faith, my family attended the 8 o'clock morning mass every Sunday. My childhood memories might seem strange to some people. I vividly remember watching the street vendors pass through our neighborhood in the old trucks slowly moving down the street as the drivers called out. The rag man used to say, "Rags for riches." And we'd hurry to tell Mom, "The rag man is here." The vendors, including the ice man, the fresh fruit, the vegetable truck, the fish man, and of course the good humor man ringing his bells, and we'd all scream, "Ice cream!" And 1953, I hit my first brick wall. I was 8 years old, and I spent the first 3 weeks of September in McCook Memorial Hospital in Hartford. I was diagnosed with mumps meningitis. I remember my sister and my brother, Sister Joanne right here, sister and brother waving to me through a window of the hospital room because they weren't allowed to come in. It was a serious illness and prevented me from starting school until the end of November. I was in 3rd grade and had fallen so far behind school I lost confidence. I felt there was no way to catch up, and as a result, my self-esteem shattered. My doubts and fears about school would haunt me throughout the rest of my school days. Our neighbors on Academy Street were the Pauls, Georgie's right here, the Highlands, the Parkers. Many of you know Billy Highland and Billy Parker. All these families had boys who loved to play sports. I used to refer to them as the big kids because I was the youngest. By the time I started high school, I realized how fortunate I was because the big kids included me in their street games. Having the opportunity to play against bigger and stronger kids turned out to be a huge advantage athletically. I developed lifelong friendships during those few years. I know Maury can relate to that playing at the boys' club with the older guys. I will never forget the day Georgie Paul and his pal Davey Parker asked my brother if he wanted to go to the firehouse to play basketball. And Al asked me if I wanted to go with him. Al was my brother. I felt like a little puppy dog, not knowing what to expect, but so happy to be included. That day was the first time I picked up a basketball, instinctively felt the challenge to loft a one-handed heave at the basket in an effort to hear the sound of the ball swishing through the net. That feeling of accomplishment created an incentive for me to want to swish 2 in a row, then 3, then eventually to score in every shot. Who would have guessed that picking up that ball that day would begin my lifelong love affair with basketball? At the time I was 10 years old, I was addicted to shooting. I was thrilled to feel the bounce of a leather ball and hear the sound of Chuck Taylor's Converse low-cut sneakers screeching on the floor. The craving never ended. I never tired of practicing. My enthusiasm for playing sports became a way of life as I looked forward to the start of each new sports season. While I continued to struggle, big time, I'm including big time, in the classroom, I found success and satisfaction in athletics. When we moved from the big house on Academy Street, and that's what my mom called it, was the big house on Academy Street, to a tiny apartment on Kenny Street, right next to Coach Dickow, the friends I made gave me an outlet I needed to cope with my family's struggles. My new neighbors, the Dickows, owned 2 acres of land, which became my field of dreams, where I learned how to throw, hit, catch a baseball, as well as the importance of teamwork, leadership, and sportsmanship. We played for hours in that field, losing all sense of time until we heard Mrs. Jackman's bell, which meant it was 5 o'clock and David Jackman had to go home for dinner. Then all of us, Paul Roy, Jimmy Hearns, Mike Stang, Pat Tedesco, Bobby Vaness, Norm Berlinski, Dick Outboys, Eddie, Art, Tommy, Jack, my brother and I knew it was time to play the last out. The bell was the key. In the fall of 1957, I made the basketball and baseball teams at Green Hill School. I was fortunate to play for 2 outstanding, I call them legends, teacher coaches, Johnny Floyd and Jimmy Bates. Coach Floyd convinced me that no one makes it alone. He was an exceptional communicator, had a sense of humor, taught us to have pride and to stay focused on training with a purpose. I spent more quality time with him during my 7th and 8th grade years than I do with my family. Jimmy Bates co-coached the basketball and baseball teams with Coach Floyd. His methods of coaching at times were questionable. Yet, he was a highly respected coach. He seemed to take pleasure in pushing our emotional buttons. When Coach Bates gave me the nickname China Doll, he certainly got my attention. I never appreciated being labeled fragile, but later realized that he believed his job was to cultivate mental toughness. And I used to tell my students, mental toughness is easy to understand. It's dealing with uncomfortable feelings. We're all very mentally tough. Coach Bates was also my social studies teacher, and I have one memory that took place in the classroom. I'll never forget how embarrassed I felt during a U.S. history class when he singled me out and asked me 10 questions in a row. 10 questions in a row. Miss Palladino, Arlene Palladino. I don't know if you were there in 1957, but she was a teacher at Green Hills. 10 questions, I went 1 for 10. No, 0. 0 for 10. Thanks, Coach. It was during that stage of my life that Coach Bates and Coach Floyd gave me the attention that I craved and instilled in me a sense of stability. Who knows what choices I might have made at such a formidable age without those 2 men in my life. And that's what I was sharing with Chip. The influences that teachers and coaches have on us are just enormous, vastly underpaid. In September of 1959, I felt proud to be a student in the first freshman class at Bristol Easton High School. My physical education teacher, Coach Burr Carlson, at 6'7", had an intimidating presence and would be my future varsity basketball coach. The first day of our physical education class, he put all of us into 4 lines of 6 to play touch football at Page Park Fields. The fields behind Eastern were getting ready in 1959. Coach asked who wanted to be quarterback for their team. And since my dad played that position, I raised my hand and was picked. The first play, I threw a pass to my best friend, Dick Sungren, who ran 10 yards straight down the field and cut to the sideline. Dropping back, I cocked my arm and threw a wobbly pass 10 feet behind him. In frustration, I yelled, "Shit!" Coach Carlson charged toward me yelling, "Palladino, how would you like me to call your mother and father and tell them what you just said?" I just stood there, wide-eyed, shaking, ashamed, as he continued to single me out. "If I ever hear you say that again, your parents will be getting a call from me." That day, Coach Carlson put the fear of God in me and taught me the importance of self-control. Coach Carlson was organized, disciplined, and taught me that success does not come to you. You have to go get it. His dedication and command for respect were the key reasons we were ranked #1 in Connecticut with a 19-1 record going into the state tournament. What a shame we lost that game by 2, Fairfield Prep. What a shame. 1962. That's it's in the book. It's all about the injury. Anyway, I have never known a man who stayed so true to his principles. I have remained in touch with Coach Carlson, his wife Carol, and their family. After all these years, I still feel a bit intimidated and in awe of this great man. You don't realize how many people have played an important part in your life until you sit down and begin to write. There's a risk that some individuals may be left out. And I truly hope I do not offend anyone. And I love Chuck McCarthy's column, "Malice Towards None." It was a great comment, and he told the way it was. It would take several books to share all my memories, so I have chosen a few special relationships to share. I have stories about Bristol athletes, including Terry Burke, Tommy Chope, Dick Sungren, Mark Noon, probably the best player I ever coached, Jimmy Kane, Steve Phelps, who's here, Cardiac Kids, Coach Al Pellegrinelli, a great football coach at St. Paul, Mike Bogoslawski, God bless him, Mike Morin, certainly Phil is in the book, Manarino, you know, and so many more people. I really hope you enjoy the story because you're a big part of it. And Tommy Dickow said it best, and it's true. I love you, and I love everybody in this room. I really do. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Roger Gamboys was a great basketball player in Bristol High. Did you play against Burke Carlson? I wonder. Some Bethany played at UConn. No.
I think he was younger than I.
Younger, okay. But, I know all about you, and my cousin Jerry D'April, some of you guys remember Jerry D'April, was a very good player. I got a great story about my cousin Jerry in the book, and all my cousins who helped me find our roots in Ruviano, Italy, and that was just an unbelievable experience. So one of the major, I think, incentives for me was to share this story about my life because my 8 grandchildren, you know, really, I'm almost 71. They really don't know me. You know, if you don't write it down, it's tough to share all those memories and the people that you share your accomplishments with. And we all have those people. Darn it, it's a great, great blessing for me. I say it over and over. Forceful, Connecticut, right place, right time. Surround yourself with the right people. And it's so tragic, as we've all experienced in Bristol. People that surround themselves with the wrong people. It's so stinking sad. And so I feel blessed. Tommy, I don't believe you about this pants story. By the way, I probably got that from Coach Floyd because he was a meticulous dresser, remember?
Yeah, yes.
And he taught me how to shine my shoes in the stories in the book about how Coach Floyd dressed. He took a lot of pride in that. Question?
Well, Gary, I was just going to say, myself and Pete Liss, a mutual friend of Gary, and our wife used to travel down to Notre Dame to watch his games in his last final, years coaching.
You did.
And Gary never lost his zest for coaching. He was arguing with the officials, jawing with the officials, jawing with his players, crawling up on his hands and knees up the sideline coaching.
Chip knows that, by the way. He's heard all the stories. Yeah. Well, that, you know what, and I always said this, Coach, and it's unfortunate, some referees, coach knows, people coach it, they make it personal. It's not personal. I never went home and said it was personal, it was just competitive. You know, the arena, you're fighting for your players because you work so hard. A week out in that field for one game, you got to wait another week. Basketball is only a few days. So that was a big advantage being a basketball coach, playing 20 games versus 9. But that's important. That's important, to be passionate. When the coach sits down and crosses his legs, I would be concerned. That's just my style, not personal.
Good style.
Tommy.
Can you share a little of your father's history? You said he played quarterback.
He did. He was actually all-state in at the Lewis High School, where my cousins grew up in Southington, in basketball and baseball. I have some articles from a sports writer that he was an all-state quarterback player and baseball player. And then he went to Samuel Johnson Academy in Stratford and played with, I was telling Chip, quite a few people from West Haven. Their names are in the book. So I'm hoping some of those families that see those names, you know, they reach out to me because I'd like to talk to them and show them some of the articles that my father played at Samuel Johnson Academy. He played for Fido Murphy. Fido Murphy in 1962 was written up in Sports Illustrated. The cover of Sports Illustrated, October issue, has Fido Murphy being named the greatest football scout in professional football. He was the scout for Chicago Bears and Raleigh Hallis. My father played for that man. And in the story, it goes on to say that St. Mary's in Illinois played the first night football game. And the coach was Moose Krause, who later became the athletic director at the University of Notre Dame. So anyway, when that story came out, my father wrote the editor of Sports Illustrated a letter, you know, stating that it's not true. It wasn't St. Mary's, it was St. Vitus, because he went with his coach, Fido Murphy, from Stanford, or Stratford, to Illinois to play at St. Vitus College. And he wrote him a note saying, I know we played the first game because I was the quarterback in the game. First night football game. And so he was a major influence on me. And I talk about the time he came in the backyard and showed us how to punt a football. And I have articles in the scrapbook that his sister, Emily, saved. He kicked, in one game, he kicked a punt, 80 yards and 75 yards. 5'5", 155 pounds. And I remember going to the barber shop, you know, and hearing people in the barber shop, here comes Little Boy Blue, because they were comparing him with Albie Booth at Yale. All right, because Albie Booth was 5'5", same. So that's all part of the story.
Thank you for sharing.
I don't want to tell it too much more because my father was he was a good guy. Mike.
I played with Gary. I had the pleasure of playing with Gary at Eastern back in the. He didn't play in basketball because I wasn't any good, and he was. And baseball we shared a little bit, but football, that was the game that I kind of focused on, and that's where I met Gary. And we weren't really good. If you remember the early history of Bristol Eastern, if we got on the field without someone getting hurt, it was a miracle. So we weren't really excellent, but Gary's a testament to his durability because no one blocked for him. I mean, we had linemen there. I was one of them. And I've always apologized to Gary because I didn't block too many people, and he would get racked like unbelievably. Still get up and keep coming at you. Just as like the title of the book, Charge, well, that was his mentality. You weren't going to stop him.
Well, the truth, Coach Mills remembers Mark Moore, great Hall of Famer at Bates College. He was the guy that opened up the first hole for me to score that touchdown against Wyndham in September. That was 1962, our first football win at Bristol Eastern at Wyndham. You opened the hole up, and anybody here could have ran through it, and I scored the touchdown. And Dick Sumner made the other block. That was the second touchdown. We beat him 12-6. And that was our first one. They had a big parade on the first one.
I don't think you can never underestimate the value of the first win, because we were got pounded pretty well, but that first win was like the greatest thing since the 500.
It's like my last loss as a coach in basketball. It was the 500th win in high school, and ended up with 499. So you don't really forget those, you know, 499.
Here, you know, I mean, the Legion back then with Coach Bates was, I mean, that was what everybody went to. You know, once he feels back, is there one Legion game or a moment in the Legion that you can talk about? That's
it's interesting you mention that. There was a lot of them, but I was with Coach Frank Porky Vieira. Some of you people probably remember. It was at St. Anthony's. I was telling Chip he started in Bristol at St. Anthony. I was with him a few nights ago. We mentioned Maury Levere. We love Maury. Love Maury Levere coaching. And he mentioned to me, you know, we were talking about sports towns, and another fellow, all right, his name was Gagliardi was there, and he was telling his friend Gagliardi, there's no better town than Bristol. I can remember going to Muzzy Field in the 60s and seeing 2,500 people watching American Legion baseball, all right, and he never forgot that, you know, and that was the mentality that Coach Bates and Rick Walsh put in us, because let's not take you know, for granted, you know, that it was just Jimmy Bates. I mean, Rick was a great coach and a great player. He was a professional player. Tom, you remember him, right? And a gentleman. He was the guy we went to. Remember? We went to him when we needed support. All right. When I was getting hammered by that baseball, what's in the book? The China doll and all that stuff. We need help. A coach, we never call him that. We call him coach. Help us out. But, you know, obviously the game up in Keene, New Hampshire, I mean, that was a heartbreaker. You know, I had that single, and Billy Gregg was rounding third base and scored. He got thrown out. Great throw by Kevin Taylor from left field. That would have tied the game up, you know. And we were that close to going to the Nationals that year.
And then Coach Bates had that big rivalry. Who was a coach from West Hartford that he had that big rivalry?
Oh, the rivalry in West Hartford was unbelievable. That was a class act. Yeah, they were tremendous. West Hartford, you remember West Hartford? Yeah, very, very good teams. But let's face it, you know, we're all as good as the people around us. You don't have Tommy Chope or Terry Burke, you know, or Mike Moore in football. You're going to struggle. I mean, you're as good as the players, let's face it. And I said to my teams for years, you know, players win and coaches lose. It's that simple, you know, and it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Yeah.
Gary, what about the game in '62 when Dick Tully hit the grand
slam
and we
home
lost 5-4? The whole town of Bristol was there.
I remember that. That was a great.
Town.
Yep, I remember that. And Chuck put a picture of me in the paper. I had my hat and my rats coming around third base. I remember that big picture so well because it was so emotional. You know, we were so passionate about baseball. We loved baseball. We had a Phil Manarino, probably the best second baseman. Played shortstop, second base. Great baseball coach. Phil, it's so great to see him. I mean, he's a true Hall of Famer. Underrated. Underrated. One thing I remember about, correct me if I'm wrong, you choked up a little bit on that, right?
Way up.
Halfway up. I remember that. Bates had him choke on way up. That's all right. You were a great player, a great team, selfless. That's something that I love to share with my players. Coach, all the coaches here can recognize that. Coach Phillips, selfless. Well, that's a very powerful asset to any team. Coach, we got a great story about your finals in the state tournament. When Coach Vieira talking to Mike Bogoslowski. I'm not going to tell him, right? But it's a great comment. Porky Vieira tells Bugsy, all right? And he used to come into my classroom at Notre Dame when I was working for Channel 8. And I'm in here, and the kids, I had Salvador, please, could you do that for us? Could you do that, please say I'm in your bed. You legend. And you know where he got that from? Does anybody know where he got that? What? No. Close though. Calling guys out. Because he was a great umpire. He was 21 years old doing varsity baseball games. He could have been a major league umpire. He was that good. He knew baseball. Yeah! 21, and no one questioned it. Like Mr. Morrow, you didn't question those people. They were the best. I'm blessed to grow up, you know, in that 50s and 60s. Today, oh my goodness, a lot of distractions. We know that. Coach, a lot of distractions. Media, everyone's a coach. It's very difficult. You know, and it's challenging. Questions? Mr. Sisiat, I swear to God, I wrote this book. Great English teacher. Kelly, thanks for coming.
Sure,
Great
one
memories.
thing. You mentioned Bristol, what a great sports town it is, and obviously that's changed somewhat now. It's changed everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that has happened. In growing up in Bristol, what was the main thing that was so positive for you growing up here versus other places that you've gone?
So positive?
Yeah.
The teammates that were committed to the system. Every system. Coach Aston at Bristol Eastern, right? Play for him. We were committed to him. We're 0-9, all right? We still believed in the system. There was no doubting, the plan. Here's the game plan. I thought we believed in it. There was no second guessing. That's something I can't remember all of it. I played 19 straight seasons in Bristol, starting in 8th grade basketball season. 19, football, basketball, baseball, American Legion. Started on every team, lucky, very lucky, right place, right time. I don't know if that would have happened in West Haven. All right, we're playing with Notre Dame guys. They were pretty good. And I really think that the key was, that everybody was really committed, dedicated, inspired by their coach. Starting with Johnny Floyd, a legend, because he was direct, he was honest, fair, intelligent, all right, underrated in my opinion. And Coach Bates, I mean, he could have been a Division I coach. I think he could have coached anything. He was that smart. He was a very smart person. But it's a lot of it has to do with what your ambitions are and your personality. Let's face it, big part. But I think the commitment to playing for the coach and the media. I think that's underrated. I mean, I couldn't wait to get the Bristol Press. I couldn't wait to read Chuck McCarthy's column. To me, that was a great motivator. I don't care whose picture was in the paper. Mike had your picture in a lot, right? But when I had my picture in the paper, in the newspaper, in my name, that motivated me. I wanted to get better, And I look forward to reading Chip's columns on the Sunday paper. Does a great job. And one of the first questions I asked him was, "How's your son doing?" Because he writes little bits of information about experiences with his son that are pretty humorous. And that's something he's never going to forget. He's never going to forget. That's a motivator. That's going to instill inspiration. So I was inspired by my teammates and coaches in Bristol. And of course, the fans were unbelievable. Bristol Eastern, when we played, you couldn't get a seat. Remember? You could not get a seat. That's why I wrote that letter to the Bristol Press when I went to see Eastern and Central play. I went to see my nephew, AJ Paul, play, and the place was packed. The emotion was remarkable. And it's funny how your mind thinks. Standing right next to me, and we were talking, I haven't seen him in years, was, do you remember Joe Petty? He was right there with me. And then recently passed away. It's a shame. Life is so fragile. I read this morning's obituary, one of my players, great player, great person. Joe Esley's father passed away in Salisbury, Mass. At 69 years old. He came to my last game. He drove down from Salisbury, Mass. Because he wanted to support the Notre Dame basketball team. That's what it's all about. It's all about people, relationships, friends, family. That's family. You've got many, many people like that, Coach Phelps. Everybody here has that family. So, believe me, I could go forever. Yes?
I don't have a question, but if with indulgence, I would love to have Joyce Galsky share the story that she told Tom McCourt and me about what great fans she and her husband Bill were of the American Legion.
Oh, yes. I remember you there. Yeah, you never missed a game.
We were buying our first house in 1962.
Yeah.
The realtor showed it about maybe 5 o'clock. he said, you want to make an offer? We said, well, we didn't know, we had to go to the meeting. There was no way that.
How about Tom McGinney too, right? Your family. I don't think he missed a game.
But the thing is, he said, you better never miss out on this, because we're filming a lot, and
Yeah.
you lose it. And he said, why don't you give us something to hold until tomorrow?
No.
So we put $1 on it.
Okay.
And he did buy it.
That's a great memory. That's what it's all about. Yeah, we Chip,
We followed Legion through
you-
New England, all the tournament
Yeah.
games with our boys. And we started having the kids.
Page Park, I mean, they were lined up all the way down the third base line, up on a hill, Muzzy Field. In my story too, I show the I think we had five, maybe four or five football games, and we were losing. We were drawing 1,500 people at a game. 15, and you know, we were getting beat pretty good. But we had some great crowds. But 2,000 was one of the averages in 61, 62. And then when I left Bristol, I'm sure I carried. Bobby Jones was a great player. There's some great players in Bristol. Your brother, a great player, all right? So, Zaro's family, great players. Good. Thank you very much, everybody.